Hello and welcome to Hotcakes Commerce. This video is a short introduction to the extensibility points within Hotcakes, and this is really just meant to get you started on knowing where to go next, right? So, the high-level overview, we're going to talk about the different extension points. We'll talk about what you need to do to implement your extensions, and then we'll talk about next steps. So first of all, let's just kind of do a high-level view of what the extension points are. For those developers that are paying attention to this, we do have ASP.NET MVC as our framework for displaying anything that is displayed to your end users. So what that means is that we have a view set, and each of those view sets contains views that are used to render things like the product details page, the category page, the checkout page, all of that, and really you have the ability to use our default view set as an extension point, or as a starting point, or you can completely create your own set of views and use those to display the content that comes out of there. We also have the ability to create partial views and custom controllers. So you can use our framework to create a partial view and a custom controller, and those just kind of sit within the product details page, or the checkout page, as we were talking about earlier, and those allow you to kind of create server-side logic. So whereas if you're doing a custom view, really you would have access to the model that we give you for the product details. But if you wanted to create your own server side logic, besides that ran in the view, you'd be able to do that in a custom controller, and you'd be able to create a partial view to connect to that custom controller. Beyond that, we have the integration pipeline. So in a couple of different key areas, we realize that having code that runs right before the page is rendered isn't enough. That we also need to have page, or the ability to run code before a certain action is taken. And so there are three places where we have this, and that is in the product details page, the add to cart. So whenever add to cart is clicked, you have the ability to run code there, and you can either do things like modify that model, or post data to an external service, or you can use that to as an example, check inventory. And you can actually stop the action from proceeding. So you have that action, and when you run your code, you either return true that it should continue, or you can return false that it shouldn't continue and return a message. So you have that same pattern across the add to cart, the checkout. So if you're on the cart page and you go to proceed to checkout, there's a proceed to checkout event, and then there's also an event called the before product payment, or before checkout payment. And so basically, before checkout is done, you have the ability to go in there and run any custom code in there. So we get a lot of questions about inventory and kind of integrating with an external inventory source. And so this is really straightforward to do. Really, if you wanted to check live inventory at the time that somebody's trying to add it to the cart, and you could put your little code in there to check with an external service, and then return back true, and then it would continue on. You could verify inventory, before proceeding from the cart to checkout, and then before actually accepting payment, you could verify again. So now, using that same example, let's talk about the next extension point, and that's the order workflow. So the order workflow allows you to insert code at any point of the order process. So an order has multiple states, and we have some documentation about what the states of an order are. But basically, when each one of those states, whenever that code runs, you have the ability to completely override what we've provided as the order workflow. So what we give you is the source code for executing all the tasks that are part of the order workflow and part of each of those steps in the workflow. And so, for instance, if you wanted to run some code, whenever an order was created, maybe if you wanted to create this in your external ERP through the API there, you could run some code that would do that. And then maybe you wanted to do something where you integrate with your ERP for fulfillment after payment was accepted online. You could do that just by inserting your code in there, and really any step in the order workflow process, from marketing it as shipped, creating the order in the first place, accepting payment, all of those steps are able to be integrated within this order workflow. Lastly, we have the REST API, and the REST API, anything you can do from the administration, you're able to do from the REST API as well. So this allows you to to push data back into the system where it's not based on some kind of event. So if you wanted to create some kind of service that synchronized your internal inventory that comes out of your inventory management system back into Hotcakes and back into your e-commerce site, you'd be able to do that very easily using the REST API. So next steps, I would recommend that you get the supplemental downloads from hotcakescommerce.com. I'd recommend that you watch the intro videos into the areas of extensibility that we talked about, and really I encourage you to try it out. So I'll show you a couple of quick things. So over here, I'm going to go in and make sure I'm still logged in. I may not be. I'll refresh this site. I'm just going to try and go to the admin in here. Yeah, so I'm not logged in anymore. So I'll log in real quick as a host account. Go to admin, Hotcakes administration. And when we go into the extensibility page, you can see here that this is where you're able to select your extensibility points. So we have the order workflow, and then we have the ability to do that product integration, cart integration, or checkout integration. And then as well, we have the views manager, and this is where you can select the active view set, or make an editable copy, or upload your own view set. That's how all that works. So the last thing, as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure that you download and try this out here. So we got the supplemental downloads over here. So we have over here the REST connector API. So this gives you some sample code on how to connect to the API and do things like create products, create categories. The sample integration solution. This is the one for the pipeline that I talked about, the event pipeline. And the last one is the sample order workflow from Visual Studio solution, and that allows you that gives you the source code for the order workflow, the default order workflow, and allows you to manage all that through there. So again, you want to make sure that we kept this pretty short and sweet, as it is an introduction. So just want to point out here, if you have any questions, you have any sales inquiries, feel free to shoot us an email at sales@hotcakescommerce.com. If you want to connect with our community, definitely encourage you to do that. We pay a lot of attention to this part of the site. So that's hotcakescommerce.com/community. You already found this video, so I'm assuming you know about hotcakescommerce.com/learn. And then as well, if you have any help desk tickets you need to submit, just do that to /support. Thanks again.